How's it going, guys? Today I'm going to be featuring the Holland, the legendary tier pan-European destroyer. Holland just received probably one of the biggest and best buffs this ship could have ever received, and that is that it now has a radar just like Smallland does, and it also received a massive DPM buff. So now your DPM is on par with Friesland, and Friesland being a gun-only destroyer, having insane DPM. Now you have it on a Holland that has a radar, and you also have torpedoes. And also the torpedoes are what, 86 knots without any sort of buffs from commander skills. So you have a fairly nasty destroyer that is very capable of farming enemy battleships, enemy destroyers, not so much cruisers, but at the same time the DPM and the fire chance and having super narrow spreads does come in quite handy whenever you do need to fight cruisers, especially if they're just sitting bow in on an island. Enemy Shima outspotting us. We pop our radar just so we can make him go away. Unfortunately, we weren't really able to finish him off. Shima had a brain. Instead of just charging in, smoking up, and going stationary, he turned away. But seeing that he was turning away, we just keep blind firing in order to basically land as many shells as we possibly can. We landed a few good shells after the Shima went unspotted, and I think Shima has something like 15,100 hit points, and we've done 14,000, so he doesn't have a whole lot of HP left. Actually, I think it might be 16,100, so he might have like 2k HP left. Especially because he was probably using a torpedo commander. We land 2 torps on the GK, having these fast torpedoes, even though they don't do a whole lot of damage, and they say there's bad flood chance. But the thing is, as long as you hit the bow or stern of a battleship, it's basically a guaranteed flood. Montana fired his guns. I guess it's a pretty good opportunity here to try and set some fires. We set a single fire, hopefully he doesn't damage con that, and then at least this way we can get a few more stacks of our reload mod, especially because this thing's DPM being as high as it is already. Any more DPM is always gonna be a great welcome. Unfortunately, we weren't able to kill off the Shima, otherwise we also would have gotten 5% more damage, and seeing that there's 4 destroyers, that DPM boost would have been fairly massive. Enemies at 52 get spotted bow in on a cap. I mean, there's not much he can do. Z52 is pushing in to finish off our friendly daring, which he does, or rather one of his teammates does. But now Z52 is caught with his pants down, and not much that he can do. I think our teammates are going to take care of him, and that means one of the more dangerous destroyers for us to deal with is going down. Even though we do have a radar, if we don't have our radar ready to fight the Z52 and we don't kill him within our radar duration, there's a good chance that Z52 is actually going to be able to finish us off, because as soon as he smokes up with his sonar and we don't have a radar, we're not going to be able to fight back. Enemy GK DCPs the fire that we set. Enemy Preußen all the way at the back taking pot shots. We just simply slowed down and juked his shells. But since GK DCP'd, we decide to start opening up again, and we land a torpedo, which causes a flood. Enemy Shima start shooting. Also, we got a double fire in that GK's, and that's both permanent. That's going to be some pretty good dot damage for us, and we're probably going to get close to maxing out our reload mod, which is pretty good. We see additional shells coming in from the left, so there's actually another destroyer here. But seeing that we had to DCP our rudder, and since we're using fully packed, which I think I forgot to mention, we're using fully packed on the Universal Commander, because having that third radar is actually pretty useful. Having 10% more DPM is also pretty useful from Fox Flare, but having 3 radars I think trumps that. And the fact that we have standard fall on the Universal guy I think is just slightly more useful, and will have very similar DPM as the battle goes on. We get a Witherer from setting that GK on fire and a flood. Enemy Holland, we decide to radar. He is a 3-bar, so we know he's a torpedo build, and I'd kind of rather not stick around. Those first torpedoes were from the Shima, so we know that the Halland most likely also dumped torpedoes through that gap. Unfortunately, this Holland also has some intelligence and decided to turn away, so we're not exactly going to be able to finish him off either. He's also basically just sailing away and leaving the cap, so we're not going to uh, have any sort of chance of getting rid of him. Holland torps pass by, so now we know it's clear. We can turn back in, and considering it's a 3-bar Holland, he's using a torpedo commander. There's a good chance we're going to be able to just finish him off fairly easily. The Shima was very low, so it's not like we're in that much trouble. But on top of that, we want to capture B and also go and help our friendly battleships that have pushed through C, because the Shima and a Holland being in front of them, it's not exactly a great time to be a battleship. Uh, but seeing that the GK over there just activated his sonar, I have some hope that at least they'll dodge maybe the first torpedo salvo. Enemy Shima smokes up right in front of the battleship, so that basically just gave away his position, and now all the battleships can basically go bow in to where the smoke screen is. He's also shooting out of it, so they know exactly where he is. Probably not the best idea for a Shima to smoke up and start using their guns, because if he just simply stayed unspotted and got to their broadside, he could probably dev strike every single battleship, and then this game might have actually turned into a loss. But Shima smoking up directly in front of them, smoking up, shooting his guns. They know exactly where he is, so I don't think Shima's going to be that much of a threat. Friendly Minagumo smokes up right in front of a Colombo. He's dumping his single file torpedoes. Luckily, that thing has a reload boost because he whiffed his whole first set, but the second one, the Colombo was way too close, so there was basically no hope for him. And, well, Colombo ends up going down. Shima gets spotted by GK sonar, and he gets himself killed. He could have very easily just started sailing away much sooner, but he stuck around way too long. Enemy Holland also gets himself spotted. Not sure what it is with these torpedo destroyers getting themselves spotted and killed off by battleships, but it is what it is. Enemy Holland also sailing off to the border. I don't think I really want to go and chase him, so I'm going to fast forward here while we were trying to figure out what we need to do, because obviously leaving a destroyer out there is going to be torture for our friendly battleships, but at the same time, seeing that they're basically just herding him around and pushing him further and further away, it's going to be a big waste of our time. So we did initially try to go out there, but seeing that our friendly battleships were still basically just chasing him and not turning away to run, after the torpedoes passed, we basically knew that we weren't really going to get anything done. So we just sailed around, went back to A, kept the Preußen spotted, and went to see if we can spot the Dalian, because didn't really want to let him just torp our friendly battleships that didn't want to chase the Holland, and at least we could help our team that way. But yeah, enemy Dalian starts pushing in. We try to get to his broadside. I was very curious to see what kind of Holland AP or what kind of damage Holland AP could do, especially on a broadside Dalian. Dalian doesn't have the best armor, so I decided to see if we could get some citadels. But unfortunately, if you look at the top right, we're actually shattering currently. Maybe we're not on his flat broadside, and that small angling actually makes his citadel armor much more effective. But at this point, Dalian starts to leave his smoke as soon as we radar, and well, he is shooting EP, so that's not the end of the world. If he was shooting HE, we probably would have died very quickly, but since he's shooting EP, we just simply turn in. I have no idea what happened to that salvo, but it's most likely that he dumped torpedoes in front of us, and then he tried to quickly aim at us, which basically threw off his aim. So we finally get our first kill of the match on the enemy Dalian, but the game is over. Would have been really great to have gotten one of those destroyers who just kept YOLOing in, and maybe we get that additional 5% damage for the other fights. That would have been great, but it is what it is. We now have 3000 HP, so basically around 90% of our health. And I guess if we think about the stand or fall skill, currently we're getting about 18% more reload. So we're just spamming our shell switch button to see what it would actually be like, and it was at 1.1. So I think if we lose a little more HP, we might be able to get under a second reload. although I'm not exactly sure if that's possible, but we are very, very close. If they ever add standard fall to like more commanders and you can stack even more reload, then yeah, that would be pretty nasty. But yeah, so now at this point, just trying to figure out where the enemy Holland is. I mean, basically just running away to the corner. But yeah, Holland, fast forwarding here because didn't want to waste another minute and a half trying to herd him around. But Holland, with all these buffs, much more relevant. Gdansk also got nerfed, so again, a radar destroyer that's much more relevant. Gdansk is still probably a little better just because you do have smoke, and having smoke means you don't necessarily need to trade your HP. And well, unlike Holland, not having smoke, if you radar something and start shooting, you're obviously going to be spotted and getting shot back at, so there is that to think about. But buffed Holland, 3800 XP. I think if we killed off those destroyers, probably could have passed that 4K. But it's alright, I'm sure we'll have our opportunities to do that later. But yeah, we're over here using Santa Claus. Actually, I don't even remember what his name is. Conrad Helfrich. But yeah, fully packed build. Fire chance in that first row because we're going to be using our guns a lot more. Torpedo speed would be nice, but the Holland Torps are already fast enough. And all you really need to do is get them to DCP. Standard fall, 20% reload if you are basically on a sliver of HP. Or if you're at half HP, another 10% reload. That skill is just really, really useful. It also applies to your torpedoes as well. Fully packed, again for another radar, and then we had Mordov as an inspiration, just to try and make up for not having Observant Rage, and unfortunately we don't have On Second Thought on this Universal Commander, otherwise that would have been an additional 5% reload. But anyway, that's pretty much it for this one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like and subscribe for more, and share with your friends, or leave a comment down below for other ships you want to see in the future. But anyway guys, till next time. Aloha.